Welcome everybody. I know it's a small group, but we're going to record this and make sure we get it out to all the awardees. So happy you could join us, and we're just going to go through some details about the grant and how to track your expenses and things like that, and some best practices. But with that, I'm going to just kind of turn it to Tamika first, because I want her to talk a little bit about the grant program and what we delivered here in the Albany region area.
Sure. So welcome, everyone. I think I know almost everyone on this call, but my name is Tamika Otis. I'm the director of KeyBank's Business Boost and Build program powered by Jumpstart. And CEG is our lead organization in the Capital Region. And when KeyBank and Jumpstart had a discussion about putting stabilization funds together, we knew that we were going to need a local organization to administer those grants. And per usual, CEG rose their hand first and foremost. And so they have been the administrator of the stabilization funds there. And the goal really was to fill identified gaps in federal funding, understanding that many small businesses were excluded from PPP, not eligible for PPP, not prepared for PPP, and were just really left kind of in desperation with no other alternatives. And KeyBank has been extremely generous and really flexible with us, and understanding that we wanted to reach the businesses that had not been reached before, that maybe had been forgotten about or not thought about, and thinking about large businesses and grants. And so we knew that for the small businesses, $5,000 could mean the difference between staying open and having to close your doors. Our goal is obviously to keep as many businesses in the Capital Region not only open, but thriving. And that's why we're coupling this fund with technical assistance to assist all of the businesses to be better positioned to maximize their success. And we're super happy to report that we made 41 awards, deploying $200,000 of debt-free capital among those 41 businesses. We were able to support 2 service-disabled veteran-owned businesses. I believe that Ellyn or someone else has the stats, but I know that we were more than 50% minority businesses as well as women. So we were very intentional and specific about focusing our efforts on those small businesses that needed the funding the most. And so I hope all of you that received the funding feel the same.
Yep. Thanks, Tamika. So as Tamika said, Center for Economic Growth has been a partner here with the KeyBank Boost and Build program as the lead in the Capital Region. I'm Michael Lobsinger. I'm the Senior Vice President here at CEG, and I lead a lot of our business growth solutions efforts and our technical service efforts. On the phone with me today is also Ellyn. Ellyn Ford, many of you have met or talked to. She was instrumental, along with Melanie LaRose, who's not on the call, but in really putting all the information together and collecting it and getting all the grant money out as soon as possible, and calling everybody to get the right documents. You know, we tried to make it as much effort as possible to talk and contact people when they had questions or they were missing information from their application. You know, we didn't want to just deny people right off the bat. We wanted to make sure that if something was missing, we followed up with them, and she did a wonderful job. So thank you, Ellyn and Melanie, for that. Carol, I believe you're on the call with Pursuit. Would you want to introduce yourself? You may need to get unmuted. I don't know if Ellyn has muted or not.
Oh, yep, hold on, sorry. Let me find. Okay.
So thank you, Michael and Tamika. Just very quickly, Carol O'Connell. I am with Pursuit, and we are based out of Albany. We serve not only the Capital District, but all of New York State. We're pleased to serve businesses of all sizes. We work closely with the SBA, so we do SBA loan programs. We were instrumental and are still doing for the next week PPP applications, and we're doing turning that around pretty quickly. We work with New York State, Empire State Development. We are now administering their New York Forward Loan Program. Please reach out to me or through CEG, and we'll put you in touch with the right people. And we are privileged to serve on the team of the KeyBank Jumpstart Initiative. So thanks, everybody.
Great. Thanks, Carol. Also, we have one of our partners and review team members on the call, Tony Gaddy from Upstate, the Upstate Black Chamber of Commerce. Tony, would you like to introduce yourself and say a few words?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to be on this call. My name is Tony Gaddy. I'm President and CEO of the Upstate New York Black Chamber of Commerce. We are a U.S. Black Chamber. Our national office is based Washington, D.C. We ourselves are based here in the capital region and serve upstate New York, everything north of Westchester, including Poughkeepsie, Newburgh, Hudson, Catskill, Kingston, Syracuse, Buffalo, Rochester, and Utica.
Great. Thanks, Tony. The agenda for this is it's not too long, so we won't be keeping you too late, but we're going to cover these 4 areas. We're going to review the reporting requirements of the grant. Then we're going to just talk about what the acceptable expenses are. It's just an example of what those things. And then we're going to talk a little bit about best practices just when it comes to accounting and things like this, only because if you're going to go out for future grants, these are good things to keep in mind because a lot of grants, they're so competitive that, you kind of want to have some processes and systems in place that just make it easier for you to both apply for grants and then report on those grants. And then we will end with talking a little bit about the technical services that we're going to be continuing to offer as a follow-up to this grant, and then an open Q&A session. So with that, we'll go to the next slide. For reporting requirements, and this was in the application, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. I'm just going to give some details. Like most grants, we actually provided the funds up front. A lot of grants, I think, in New York State usually provide funds after you expend those dollars, but inevitably, regardless of whether you do up front or behind, you're often going to be asked for supporting documentation to show where you spent those funds. This is both important to us as organizations that put those funds out because we could get audited on that level and reviewed for where these monies went, but also individual companies could ultimately get audited as well. And we want to make sure that they have the appropriate backup and the materials so they can support that type of audit. Once this information is collected, it has to come to CEG at our contracts@ceg.org email. If for some reason you have trouble getting things scanned or anything like that, we will work with you to get that stuff to us, get it scanned or faxed to us. So Ellyn and the team here at CEG will be on top of that. So basically all expenses reported for this grant have to be incurred and paid for after March 20th, 2020, and then within 90 days of receipt of the grant fund. So that was about the time that, New York shut down and people started to have to close their businesses, yet there were expenses that they had to still pay for after that time period. And then in some of the startup, they had some expenses that they had to pay for. So that's the time period where there's some acceptable expenses. And we did have some questions, which we'll talk about a little bit about, can I pay my credit card and things like that? Talk about those in the next section. Once the grant, to close up the grant, the requirement is even after the 90 days is expired, we have 180 days from the date you receive the funds to actually get the supporting documentation into CEG. We are going to be tracking who has sent us the documentation, and we'll be following up with people to make sure that they get it for us and sending out reminders to do that. For doing this, what we really want to see are the 2 items below this. We need a spreadsheet or some sort of document that highlights, when it was paid, how much was paid, and who it was paid to, and for what it was, like a description. If you recall, in the grant, we did include a spreadsheet, and the link is here below. that pretty much gives you a template to track all those things. That way you can put all that information in that would be required. It would total it up for you, and then you could submit that with your backup documentation. That backup documentation needs to be proof of some sort that you made the payment. So it's going to be canceled checks, invoices that are marked as paid, bank statements that have, the highlighted expenses, so we can see that it was withdrawn from your bank account. Some sort of evidence of payment, a receipt, an actual physical receipt that you get from Staples or somewhere else. You can make a copy of that. The recommended thing that we do, and I do this at CG all the time because we have to do this constantly, whether it's expense reports or reporting to the state or the federal government. We keep backup copies of all of our our invoices and our paid checks and canceled checks, and our bank statements and all that. And depending on what the program is, we keep that all in a separate little file. So that way, if someone comes specifically about KeyBank grant, this particular grant, you will have that in one place. You'll have that cover sheet in one place, and all that backup documentation. You don't have to go hunt for it. And then we will also have it as well. And that's really the goal, is to make sure there's multiple places that this information can be found. This is just, to me, is really best practices when it comes to going after grants. And once you get used to doing things like that, you're going to see this happen with future grants and funds as well. And it just helps build those best practices and habits when it comes to grant management. So I don't know if Tamika, do you want to add anything here?
I'm unmuting you.
Yeah,
There we go.
I just want to reiterate what Michael said about the importance of financial documentation. That was a huge hindrance for many businesses in trying to apply for federal funding, and even in some instances, even for our funding. So we're hopeful that this process will help better position you to have all of your financial documentation in order. And then we're also prepared to work with you while you are expending the grant, and even after, to again make sure all of your financial documentation is in order, so that you are positioned for every opportunity that comes as it relates to funding, and especially grant funding.
Great. If anybody has questions as we're going along, you can put them in chat. We'll definitely answer them as they pop up, and then we'll be addressing possible questions at the end as well. Let's go to the next slide, Ellyn. All right. So in the application, these are some examples of acceptable expenses: mortgage payments, rent payments, utility payments, related health, property, casualty, any insurance type payments, salaries and wages for employees, building maintenance costs and fees, software services that were critical to the day-to-day operations. We tried to be as broad as we could. Tamika was just saying earlier when we got on the call, and it was a good point, is like, this isn't an exclusive list. This is just an example. And people were, putting things and asking about things when they were applying. And one of the things is, what about certain equipment, things like that? And yes, so, if there's a piece of equipment that is necessary for you to operate your business, or because you lost employees to become more efficient, or do things more automated and less manual, those things would be approved for use. It's always good to ask us, ask for permission or ask about it, but we're trying to be as flexible as possible with these things. One of the things that came up about eligible expenses, and it goes back to the timing, is people didn't mention, can I pay my credit card off? And the answer to that was, well, it depended on when that expense occurred. If the expense that you wanted to pay within the credit card occurred within that time period, you could pay for that expense line item in the credit card, but you couldn't just apply it blindly to your credit card your credit card bill. It had to go to specific things. And some of the advice I had is, well, you got to think about this. You also have to think about future expenses because, $5,000 can go pretty fast, and you may want to pay down your credit card, but you can also think about, well, let me use this money to pay for XYZ expenses in the future, and then I can reserve the money I normally would have spent to then pay down the credit card. So there are some challenges with that just because of the requirements. We don't want to, if we really wanted this money to go to of when it impacted you at COVID-19. Sorry, Tamika, anything more to add here?
Hold on. Sorry. I wish it would just stay on mute. Okay.
Here I go. Sorry. In Syracuse, we funded a daycare, and the owner called me kind of frantic that her freezer had just gone, and that's obviously where she holds all the food for the children, but that she didn't see that a freezer was listed as an example of acceptable expenses. And I was able to tell her, yes, absolutely. So anything that is crucial or critical to your business remaining in operation, whether that's, equipment, just keeping in mind, and we'll talk about this on the next slide, it's so important to separate your business and your personal expenses. So anything that you submit to us or pay with this grant should very, very clearly be for your business. And as long as you can show that, then absolutely it's an acceptable expense.
Yep.
Well, I actually have a question. So
Sure.
it was also, a question was posed about air filtration and buying a air purifier, and whether that would be covered, and if someone had already bought one but it wasn't on their list. We did talk about sticking kind of close to the list that you submitted, but then there's also this factor of, is an air filter machine, something like that, is that critical to the business? How does that fit into these types of requirements?
Sure. So, obviously the list that that applicant sent in for the application was to give us an idea of what they would spend it on. But there was also this unknown of, once we start up, what were the requirements going to be? So for us to reopen our daycare, we need to have more cleaning supplies and personal protective equipment and taking temperature measurements. And, now we're starting to hear about certain businesses like gyms and things like that, by New York State requirement, need to have some sort of air filtration upgrades. So, those things I feel would be necessary and acceptable expenses because of those changes in the rules of trying to reopen.
Okay.
And to the point that Tamika said, between personal and business expenses, we did have quite a few sole proprietors. They probably operate the business out of their home. And we did delineate between that, if you are operating out of your home, you couldn't use the expenses for your home rent or your home mortgage and things like that, or your home utility expenses. It's just, that's a gray and difficult area to deal with if you're ever audited. But, for most, I think, home businesses, there's plenty of expenses that add up. And I think, it's just shifting your perspective on, what else do I have that I need to spend money on to keep my business going. All right. I don't see any additional questions in the chat. So let's go on to the next one. So one of the things we wanted to talk about a little bit is just best practices. And this kind of came about because as applications came in, we saw a wide variety of applications too. Businesses that were fairly well established, and they understood what we meant by getting, current financials and year-to-date financials and things like that. And there were also some businesses that the way they operate, they maybe just collect a lot of receipts, and they may put things away, and eventually they give them to their accountant to put together to do their taxes. And even though in normal business operation that those things work just fine. When it comes to having to go after grants and go after applications like this, it really is useful to have like an accounting system and a method or policies, because that way you're not hunting and chasing down information from your accountant or somebody else to put the, or, quickly writing down the information and to build a spreadsheet from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those things can really delay you getting applications in time. It can really, change your likelihood to get awarded. And, we always, like Tamika said, we want people to be best prepared for, future potential for getting money. And there may be still some relief funds that come out and other loans that come out that, having these things in place really help. And that's where I think we can also, as KBB partners and through our technical services can help. Here's a list of some things that Ellyn had put together that make a lot of sense. There's different ways to account for your how you make when your money comes in, whether it's an accrual or cash basis, and understanding what that means, because it really does impact how your financials look when you present them. And you may have your accounting system in like a cash basis, but then maybe the organization asking for the application, they wanted in an accrual basis. So how do you shift back and forth? Like, it's kind of hard to do unless you have an accounting system that can swap back and forth. Really being diligent about tracking expenses, and most accounting systems allow you to class expenses according to where they need to be accounted for, both an account, where it falls in what account it goes under. Like if it's personnel or if it's travel or rent, you can classify it that way. But you can also class it by, if you have to track expenses by job and all those things. The power and strength of having a good system like that makes it so much easier to report out when you are seeking money. We talked about keeping your business financials separate from your personal. That makes so much sense on the accounting side. If you're a sole proprietor and others, that still report single taxes, that's fine. The tax system has a way to, handle separating out those two incomes when you report your taxes. So that's not as big of a deal. Doing monthly reports and looking at them and having them available is always a really good thing. And again, having a simple software package, those reports are at your fingertips. Unfortunately, people kind of, and I'm guilty of this, is my personal financial stuff is like just my checking account. I don't keep on it myself personally as often as I should, but in a business, it's like a must. Like you need to stay on top of it. Keep your accounts receivable. I should say you want it to be constantly going and getting in cash because you want customers, but you want to stay on top of it. You don't want to have people that owe you money out there, past 60 days, 90 days. You really want to, have a policy and a procedure to follow up and make sure you're getting paid on time. Automate when possible. Anything that you can do just to take the manual effort out is good. And then keep backups of everything. It is a digital age where everything is online and people have your bank account has all of your account things and things like that. But people still send, they're sending invoices by email. They're sending invoices and bills and stuff by mail. And what happens is then all those things get put in different places. They're not all in one location. And so even for CG, we scan all of those that come in, and then we actually put those in a folder together so they're all digitally in one spot. But we do have grant requirements where even though those are all in one spot digitally, we have to collect them all and put them together in a folder as physical backup too. So the day and age of paper is not long gone yet. And hire some help. There are plenty of bookkeepers out there that have really good knowledge. Some that work with nonprofits to do a great job. CEG has hired accountants and stuff to help with us And sometimes those bookkeepers, you only need them once a week or once or every other week, and they just take everything you got and they put it in an accounting system and just take a lot of that burden off. And that's something we can help with too, is to help get some of you connected with accounting professionals. Does anybody, Tamika, Carol, do you want to chime in? Maybe we'll start with Carol. This is kind of Carol's area.
There we go.
Yes, great. So I just want to reiterate the importance of it and your accounting practices. Based on our experience, many people were turned down for either the disaster loan or the PPP because of the accounting method or practice or bad practice. And to appeal that kind of, when you're declined, the state and the SBA was allowing appeals, but you really, it's a lot of work. So that just drives home the point of how important it is. Accounting for labor, if you're cash versus accrual. So people over-reported their profitability or they under-reported their payroll. And that was a leading cause of failure to get relief. So just driving home that point. Thanks, Michael.
Yep. So we did get a question here. So first of all, for you, Carol, what areas does Pursuit cover? Only the capital region or also downstate? I believe you do downstate. So
all of New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Yes.
And then the other question is this grant taxable? So that's a really good question. And it's an unknown, I would say, but normally grant income can be taxable if you're a for-profit. And that's one reason why we are collecting W-9s, because we have to report that to on our side of things. Those things may change. I don't know if there's already any rules in there for PPP that we know about. I don't know personally. If Carol, you might know. If Kate was here, she could tell us.
I don't know the detail, and it's pretty black and white answer, and I don't have the answer, but I'll relay.
Yeah. Because obviously if someone got a PPP loan that became forgivable,
right?
Is that taxed? And I think that's a to be determined thing, especially with COVID funds that have been dispersed. So good question. I don't have an answer for you yet. And another question is any pro bono accounting help in the area? Yes, in a way. So I believe you can work with the SBDC for some assistance. However, I'm not sure they're necessarily going to help you with a full-blown accounting services. However, I will say that through some of the technical services money that's available through our KeyBank Business Boost and Build program, we can work with you to possibly assist in maybe getting started with an accountant, and it could offset some of the initial costs. But those would be things we would want to meet with the company and talk about their individual situation and see how we can help.
Right. And I might say the clarification between bookkeeping services and accounting services. I think accounting services, not so much, but community loan fund, CEG, both, access to a lot of courses, and there's still tons of online courses to teach you about QuickBooks, etc. Pursuit for our clients, our loan clients, we actually pay to get them set up on QuickBooks and trained and things like that. But there's a lot of free services out there on the accounting software side, which is probably the most important. I think you just always want to have a relationship with an accountant, and that does cost money, and sometimes cutting corners really can hurt you on that aspect.
Yeah. And, I'd say that one of the biggest challenges that with any kind of, getting into an accounting software and needing a bookkeeper, initially it's one, learning and navigating the software, but, how do you set up your set of accounts, and how are you going to track your expense? And sometimes just sitting down with someone from SBDC or Community Loan Fund or CEG, we can kind of help you break down how to do that. And then if you get the online training and are comfortable with QuickBooks enough, you can dive in and create those things and just have them reviewed by one of the partners. So,
Right. And the last thing, there's a lot of very good free bookkeeping software. So if you're a sole prop, DBA, you absolutely don't need QuickBooks. And there's some great articles written on that as well. Mm-hmm.
Maybe, Carol, we can look up some of those and provide that. We're going to provide a link to this recording. So maybe that's something you and I could work on to send some information on that.
It's great. Yeah, there's
okay.
a couple of websites that lay out exactly what level of bookkeeping software you would need, and you'd be surprised. You really don't need a lot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay,
that would be great. That would be great.
Yeah.
Tamika, do you want anything to add here?
Just to say, I know that sometimes when looking at the financial stuff and the bullets and everything, it can become overwhelming, but that's the beauty of the stabilization fund, is that this collaboration of organizations are prepared to assist you in getting this all together and to advise you and all of that. So don't feel like you're going into the woods alone. We're locking arms with you, not just to cut you a check, but to also provide some technical assistance for you as well.
Yeah, that's great. So that's a great segue to the next slide. So the beauty of the way this program rolled out is not only were these grant funds made available through the KeyBank Foundation and Jumpstart, and they've been really great partners, and is that the partnership, consisting of Jumpstart and KeyBank and Pursuit and CEG and the SBDC, as well as some of our other partners like the Capital Region Chamber and Tony with the Chamber. There's all kinds of resources available and ways to take advantage of that through our KeyBank Business Boost and Build program. And that is part of this grant. We want we are highly urging our awardees to take advantage of these programs, and we'll be constantly reaching out to them in places where we assist. And in technical assistance, we do a lot of work in strategic planning and growth plans. So if people are looking at new markets or new ideas or even developing new products or whatever, we can sit and talk to them about, what's the best approach to go? How do you really understand your customer and your market? To you're already operating and you're trying to become more efficient, or you're trying to implement new systems and procedures in operation. We've sat with companies and really helped them, map out, where their priorities need to be operationally to maximize, their productivity. Entrepreneurship training, doing workshops and webinars. We've done some really good programs with Gaddy and planning some things with Sandler training and doing our innovation workshops and our boot camps that happen with all of our partners are great things to take advantage of. With CEG, we also do a lot of technical stuff. So if you're a product company, we do a lot of work with manufacturers, whether you're doing food manufacturing or candles or high tech manufacturing for aircraft. We have all kinds of contact and resources in that space that we can help leverage these KeyBank funds to help those companies grow and move forward. And then, of course, business loans and access to capital is a big opportunity as well. Carol, I don't know if you want to share a little bit more about some of the programs again that you are putting out there right now with Pursuit.
Sure. I'll just quickly run through it. Just thinking about our audience. So our audience is not quite startup, but we have very early stage. Some of our awardees are early stage, and some of them are very developed. And so the SBA, what really promote is the SBA was created to address every kind of entrepreneur, from startup all the way to growth companies where you're looking to actually buy property in the millions of dollars. And the SBA joins with many great financial institutions, including KeyBank, of course, and then non-banks, such as Pursuit. Non-bank is, we tend to deal with businesses that don't have a banking relationship yet, so we're filling the gaps. And that's basically what we do. So if you're out there, form a banking relationship immediately by opening up your checking account and doing all those proper things. But if your bank isn't ready to lend to you, just know there are organizations such as Pursuit on the SBA side, and also as a nonprofit community development organization. Same thing, Community Loan Fund is out there too, to help with microloans for startups, all the way to, like I said, it's called a 504 loan, where you can actually buy the property that you're leasing. And it's amazing. It's a great opportunity for small businesses and everything in between, working capital, equipment, things of that nature.
Right. You know, something that you just touched on, which, you know, I often try to, you know, talk to with companies that, you know, are getting grants from the state, is oftentimes, and federal grants, but oftentimes grants are, you know, the money's delivered to you after you expend the money. And one of the key ways to leverage programs from the SBA or from Community Loan Fund and some of the chamber funds for Albany County companies and Pursuit is, if you have a grant, and a sizable grant that you have to spend money first, you can sometimes leverage that grant agreement to get a working capital loan or a line of credit to cover some of your initial costs. CEG has done this. We keep a line of credit around just in case our payments are late from some of our funders. I've used it. We've used it for clients who were getting some sales training, and they were able to get a loan to cover some of the initial costs while they were completing the training program, and then they got reimbursed. So, and then just pass that money on right back to the bank.
Mm-hmm.
Ellyn, do you want to add anything here?
No, I think you guys covered it. I love when you mention about the line of credit, because I don't, you know, in terms of when you are receiving money and you know you're guaranteed to get that money, it's just, I mean, seems like a no-brainer, but you know, I don't hear talk about it much. So I always enjoy when you talk about it, because I don't think it's it's not top of mind for people. So
yeah. No, and you know, it's not just grants too. Sometimes you might get an investment, for example, and if you want to preserve that cash a little bit, you know, and you have a good business plan and you're expecting sales revenue, but you don't want to tap into that necessarily investment dollars too quickly. You can also leverage those investment dollars to, you know, garner some interest from like the SBA. I started my company way back in 2002, and we had got some investment. We had a customer all lined up, and some pre-orders. And to preserve our cash, we ended up going to the SBA for a small loan that was pretty much used as our inventory costs to build our product for delivery to our customers.
One thing in thinking about the group of grantees, forgot to talk about New York State. And so New York State has some fantastic specialty loan funds in different regions. So Pursuit handles them for different regions. Community Loan Fund handles it, and so does the Chamber for the Capital District, with emphasis on women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, veteran businesses, and things. So do reach out to us. If you're a contractor, we want to hear from you. If you're bidding on state contracts, there's a special fund for that. We work in New York City with a special fund. So there's a whole variety of special funds, particularly for women and minority businesses.
Tony, do you have anything to add here? You know, I know you have a lot of relationships, obviously, with the community and resources as well.
Hold on, I'm getting him. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
So, I want to thank everyone again. I'm glad that the Upstate New York Black Chamber is here to be a partner. One of the things we like to serve is primarily as a resource to entrepreneurs, aspiring or regardless of what level you're at, to just be here as a resource. I think that's probably our number one role in this partnership. What role can we fill? Are there things that you might need to help your business? Can we look within our membership to provide you with something? There are certain things that we don't have yet as members. Learning about what other needs are helps us identify things that we do need to fill. So in regard to the technical aspect, we can assist with business plans, we can assist with marketing, branding, advertising, connecting you with media is also something that we're starting to do a little bit more of, because sometimes it's easy to get a story published, but we do want to make sure that we are putting our best stories forward so that there is a story that not just resonates or lands on one page, but kind of piques interest so it has extended legs and it can kind of build from there. So really, we emphasize the relationship aspect of what we do. First and foremost, we are all in the relationship business. And I think that is probably our strongest suit as an organization, is connecting members to members. We don't limit ourselves to members. If there's a non-member that needs support, we will do our best to engage and provide them with a level of assistance, but at the same time, it's not membership level. So we want to make sure that we have to honor our members as well, but we don't turn people away who come to us for help. That is not why we're here. We don't limit ourselves to transactions when we focus on transition.
Thank you very much, Tony.
Thank you.
Tamika.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the tax question because I knew I had this information, but I didn't want to say it wrong. And I'll share it. But this is coming from irs.gov, and I will share the link in the chat, but also that this is information we should email to each of the awardees.
Yeah.
They don't come back to this. But it's a private foundation's grants, and that's where these grants came from, KeyBank Foundation, not KeyBank Corporate. A private foundation's grants to organizations are taxable expenditures unless, 1, the recipients are public charities, or 2, the foundation exercises expenditure responsibility. And that's what we are doing. And what that means is that the foundation exerts all reasonable efforts and establishes adequate procedures to see that the grant is spent only for the purpose of which it is made, to obtain full and complete reports from the grantee organization, and then also to make full and detailed reports on the expenditures to the IRS. So we are absolutely doing that by having you all fill out that spreadsheet, give supporting documentation. So according to the IRS, these grants are exempt because of the fact that KeyBank Foundation is exercising expenditure responsibility.
That's great.
Great. Thank you.
Welcome.
Super.
All right. With that, open it up for questions. If you want to unmute everybody, Ellyn, you can.
Unmute all.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody should be good. And there is one more chat, it looks like. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. You're welcome.
Stephanie, yes. You're welcome. And I know quite a few other questions were asked earlier. So if there aren't any other questions, certainly we will be posting this, obviously, on our website. We'll be sending it out by email as well as some other information. And we will continue to keep reaching out to people to make sure that everybody meets the requirements. We're not going to leave you hanging. We're just going to bug you a whole lot if you haven't got us what we need. So just expect to hear from us, a lot in the next, probably, 180 days, or maybe now we're 160 days maybe. But again, I just want to say congratulations to everybody. I really wish we could have got more out to more people. There were a lot of good applications. It was really tough, for us to make the decision, and make sure that we covered the capital region appropriately. And it's been really good with our partnership here with everybody on the phone, and I thank them for that as well. With that, I don't know, Tamika, if you want to close with anything, I'll give you that opportunity.
Wait, can I just interject for 1 second?
You sure can.
I just want to make sure, sometimes I know that people find it awkward to ask questions in a public way like this. So even if someone's hearing the recording, whatever, again, just to reinforce that there are no stupid questions. So if you have questions or you need assistance, don't hesitate to reach out. Our conversations don't go beyond, where they need to go. So what you tell us, you share in confidence, and we respect that.
Good point. Thank you, El.
And I'll just kind of reiterate sincerely reiterate what Michael said, and just congratulate each of you for getting these grants. I forget how many applications we had, but we had more applications than we had funding. So it means that your proposal, your application stood out to us, that we believe in your business and we support your business. And so please lean on us, not just for the funding, but also as Michael explained and Ellyn and Carol explained, the technical assistance piece, especially as it relates to your financial documentation. I can't stress that enough. Just like you said, it was a lack of accounting practices or systems that really held back people from certain grants and loan opportunities. And so we want to ensure that none of you are in that position. So congratulations again, and we are looking forward to supporting your business and highlighting your success stories, and making sure that all of you aren't just surviving, but thriving, even in the midst and after COVID.
Thank you, Tamika. All right, with that, everybody, you have a great rest of your week, and we look forward to working with you.